Hello everyone, my name's Takaya Honda and welcome to takTalks number 12 with Lily Van der Meer, an absolute legend who I haven't seen in real life for way too long, but takTalks is a place where I get to talk to actors, mostly so far, or only so far, about their lives, about acting, about how they approach it, and what those experiences have been like and what they've learnt from them, which is really, really fun for me and I hope really, really fun for you. But let's get to why you're all here. Introducing the star of the show, Lily Van der Meer. Yay! Hello.
Hi everyone.
How you going? For the third time.
I'm good. Yeah, for the third time. I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking.
How are you? You're staying with your mum at the moment?
I am. Yeah, I've decided to stay on the Gold Coast. I was supposed to go to America actually probably a week before the whole COVID thing broke out. So my flight was cancelled like the morning that I was supposed to move over there. So I was like, I don't really have anywhere else to stay but here. So yeah, I'm on the Gold Coast at the moment.
Which, looking at the US, is probably a good thing.
Absolutely. And to think that I was so close to moving over as well is very frightening now to think about. But yeah, I'm glad that I'm here.
Yeah, it's really, really fortunate. I'm glad you're here as well. What temperature is it there for you right now?
It's like 27, 28.
That's so
Quite hot.
nice.
What is it there? Is it really cold?
It's been like 12 and 14. Today was a little bit warmer. It was probably around 20 today, but it's been cold.
I kind of miss that. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't had like cold weather in a very long time.
Yeah, but I think you could come back for a day and be like, all right, yep, good, done. Back to the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. That's very
Getting
true.
back in the ocean as well. Are you able to get into the ocean at the moment, or are you not allowed to go?
Well, I technically live in like this like old beach shack thing, like on the
Oh.
beach. So technically, I'm like I can quickly run down and go in the water because it's my backyard. Like I can get away with it. But you're only allowed to be on the beach for like exercising and stuff, and no one's really on the beach, which is good. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can.
That's
Yeah.
what a terrible life you live right now. The beach
I
is a
mean, yeah,
backyard.
pros and cons, pros and cons.
Yeah. So what have you been doing in your isolation?
Um, it's funny because I was, ready to indefinitely move to another country. It kind of threw me aback having to suddenly stay and like my bags were packed and ready and everything in my life like I got rid of. So coming back felt very I don't know, it was hard to get back into the groove and realize that I could be here for an amount of time I'm not really certain about. So I've just been adjusting to staying, and also it's a really weird thing to not be auditioning like almost every day. That was what kept me busy as an unemployed actor, was auditioning and working on scripts and stuff. So then when all of that got cancelled, it was like, wow, suddenly I don't have auditions and I don't have to be anywhere, or I can't be anywhere but here and be present. What do I enjoy? Like, what do I like to do? So it's been interesting. I've been trying to, I feel like it goes in and out of stages of, and I see on social media a lot people saying, now's the best time to like get the best body and like get in shape and like do everything that you've always wanted to do. And I'm like, dude, I haven't left my couch in 4 days. You know what I mean? Like some days I just don't want to get up because we have to stay at home and there's not a lot that you can do. And I'm like, I don't want to like do this stuff. I just kind of want to chill and take this time while I can to actually just like be present and live day by day. So I don't know. In saying that, some days like I'll get up and I'll go for a run. I've been painting sometimes because I've always
Can you
wanted
show
to
us some
do
of your
that. Never
paintings?
got around to it. Yeah, my partner and I followed a Bob Ross
Oh,
tutorial,
that's right.
and I made
That's
this.
really good, I've got to say. I'm
Look, if
super
Bob
impressed.
Ross like shows you what to do, you can really do anything.
Yeah, but there's a hand-to-eye coordination thing that some people just don't have, and I'm not great at drawing and stuff. I can throw balls and catch balls really well, but but painting and stuff, I'd be like, ah.
Yeah, it's quite difficult. I did get quite frustrated with it, and there was a hot minute where I was like, this is not going to look like anything. But eventually it did. And then I tried to free ball one of them, and like it didn't work. But you know what?
Oh, that's cool though.
It counts. It's supposed to be a woman looking into the universe, but like it's abstract.
Well, that's right. Actually, I heard a good thing like a few months ago now. It feels like the other day, but where I think it was from an artist or something talking about how as artists, everyone's an artist. They just don't know their medium or their genre. So, like, yes, there's people who can draw a realistic face, but the best artists in the world haven't always been like photographic in how they've drawn. They could be abstract. They could be whatever. It's just about how, the problem with, I guess, art classes or something is generally it's focused towards making something look real. And a lot of people, that's not how their artistic vision comes out. So, but they feel like they can't do art because it's not the same as that kind of thing. Whereas like, no, freeform it, and then whatever comes out, that's your art, and you can actually hone and perfect that. The best artists have just done a lot of their form of art.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure to make things perfect, to look perfect. And if you don't have that natural ease, like it's not going to look the way that you like necessarily want it to, but it might end up being better anyway. I don't know. But I've been doing that a bit, reading a bit, watching films and stuff like that.
I think that thing you're talking about, how like there's heaps of like influencers and stuff out there going, now's the time to get fit and now's the time to conquer that thing that you've always been putting off and blah, blah, blah. And it is a time when you can do that, but it's only if you want to. Because it's also a time where we're having to deal with a pandemic, that we have to fear, we're isolated, we're stuck inside, and that's something that we mentally have to deal with as well. And if we try to just ignore that and go, I'm going to get a good body, it's going to come crumbling down at some point.
Yeah, because like social media is filled with all of that kind of stuff right now, and being grateful that we can stay inside and all of that kind of stuff, which is great and amazing. But I don't know, the posts about people saying things like, this is the time that the universe is like resetting, and like this is our time, look at look at the world and how it's like all now that there's no pollution and stuff, like the world is healing, da 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 da. And I'm like, sure, but there are also lots of people that are dying and that are really sick, and like we can't really ignore that just because we live a privileged life and we get to stay inside and exercise and have all these privileges. Like I think it's important to see both. On the mental side of it, I think it is nice that people are motivating others to, like, we always need positive inspirations and motivation. So I think in that regard, like in that space that they're coming from, it's really nice. But it's hard because like as an everyday person, like not a fitness person, like not really, I will do that and then I'll be in this healthy like mindset in this space, and then I'll go to the shops and there's signs everywhere and everyone's in masks and you can't go, as in like Coles. I ain't going like shopping, you know what I mean? And when I go to Coles or Woolworths and there's things going out over the speakers telling people to stay away from each other, and it dawns on you as soon as you leave the house how serious it is, seeing that there's no cars on the road, seeing everyone lined up at Centrelink. Like it just goes to show how crazy the world is right now. So I think it's balancing the both and deciphering what people are actually trying to say through social media. I also think, I'm ranting now, but I also think that there's a fine line on social media right now because influencers, like as their job title, are in this weird position where like no one's leaving the house. So suddenly people don't want to see like the content that you were putting out before it happened, because we all know that it's not real. And now I think they realize that they can't get away with it not being real either, because everyone will then condemn them for being at a beach or being on a holiday or something. So it's this weird thing of like, I do kind of feel for those people with that job title as well, because that no one really knows what to do and what to say.
Yeah, and I think just like for everyone at home who doesn't really understand how the social media influencer world is, very, very few of true influencers are posting things that they're doing that day.
Yeah.
It's highly curated, it's planned, if not at least a day before, weeks, months before. And so whilst their lives seem like it's constantly always perfect, it's hyper planned as well. There's a great deal of structure to it. There's a lot of thought that's put into it. Every photo is worked and chosen out of probably quite a whole lot. So don't feel like what you see there is necessarily their reality. It is a reality for them. They are doing those things. But I do understand your point in terms of feeling for them too, because their whole life is built around selling their lifestyle. And if that lifestyle is being hindered by this, if they can't go to the events that they do, that is what sells the basically gets them paid from doing the promotions and stuff they do, then they're also in a place where they're really struggling. And I'm sure that they're one of the ones that are falling through the gap at the moment, because they probably don't fall under the titles that the government has put on things like job seeker and job keeper.
But I also think like it's just quite a dangerous territory that we're stepping into, because they do have such a big platform. It's really easy to influence others, like because they're not, you know, I don't know, doing what they normally do. It's now suddenly that whole like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing all these like amazing, great things. And it's really hard to sometimes keep up with that, because you're like, oh, is what I'm doing not significant enough?
Mm.
So it's social media is a weird time. I've definitely in this sort of past month deleted it for like a couple of days to a week, and then brought it back again, and then deleted it again. And I think it's nice to just remove yourself from that and be able to sit with your own company and solitude for, at least a couple of days, and not be influenced by what the pressure of what other people are doing.
I think I was going to get into it later. We might as well go to it now, because we're already talking about social media. Prior to Neighbours, which was your first real big step into like mass following, what was social media like for you then? And then how did it change once you booked Neighbours, and then you suddenly had all these people caring about what you did each day?
It vastly changed. I cannot even descriptively explain how much my world changed, especially online. Before I booked Neighbours, I was 15 at school. Like social media was a thing that I didn't get Instagram until I was 13, 14. I hadn't had it for very long. It was something that you had to like connect with friends and people that you went to school with. Like it was, whatever. And then overnight, like booking the show and suddenly being around, obviously I was the youngest of the main cast members by quite a lot. And so I was suddenly thrown into this world of like makeup and fashion and design, and people pushing you to be who they want you to be. And I didn't have my identity figured out when I was 15. So suddenly I was thrown into this cesspool of like TV idol, like I don't know, people idolizing who they think you are on TV, and it was a lot. It was a lot. I definitely went through ebb and flows of a love-hate relationship with it, for sure. Mostly pointed towards the hate side, to be quite honest. Yeah.
Mm. So have there been lessons for you in social media of how to deal with that stuff?
I remember when I first came onto the show, and a lot of people commenting about your weight and about how you look on the screen, and I'd never experienced that before, really. And so to suddenly be bullied about like your physical appearance was a lot for me to handle, and especially as like being at school, anything that a bully says to you, you take to heart, because it's just kind of so personal. So suddenly when I went into having people that I didn't even know saying that, it was a lot to handle. And it's funny because a lot of the time, like when I used to comment back in the very early stages before anyone told me like, dude, this is hurting you more than you think by doing this. But when I used to comment back, you know, it always comes back with, oh no, but I love you. I love your character, but I you're pregnant though, right? Like you are, right? And so it's things like that. It's like, actually, no, it's just 10 degrees in Melbourne and they put a jacket on me. Like, I'm not hiding a baby bump. Or like, sorry, I don't have a flat stomach and like I'm eating properly and I'm not starving myself, you know? Like, it was a lot of contradictory with that kind of thing. So I think I ended up, you know what, I stopped because I think a lot of the cast had my back in that. But I also just grew up and I also just realized like their opinions don't particularly matter to me about my appearance and who I am, because I think it was hard for me at the time because I didn't know who I was. So it was hard for me to sort of navigate that and feel like it wasn't an insecurity because I didn't know how to handle it. Now I know who I am. I know like what I need and respect, and what opinions um, are like valid and what ones aren't. So I think it was just a time thing, but it's something that you can't, you know, when I see new cast members coming onto the show, especially younger ones, my heart kind of breaks for them a little bit because I know inevitably what challenges and things that they will go through that you can't really teach anyone because you know, I had all of you guys saying to me like, don't worry about the hate, everyone gets it, everyone you know, gets told this and that, and you will feel really bad sometimes and you will cry and you will like be on the floor and da 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 da, and it's like, but you need to experience it to get over it in a way, because I can't sit here and tell someone else like, just, you know, don't worry about it, everything will be fine, because their feelings are valid. So if it does upset them, they're allowed to be upset by it as long as it doesn't affect them in the point of it changes the way that they see themselves. If you know, it's allowed to hurt because sometimes things do hurt, but it's the way that you handle it, and I don't think I handled it very well at the start, and I think that definitely spiraled me in times on the show um, to just not be like at my best
But at the
mentally.
same time, you handled it in whatever way you could to try to help yourself through it. And without having done that, you might not have ended up in the place that you are.
Absolutely. I think also I had to because I was on a national TV series, you know what I mean? So I had a responsibility to hold to the show and to not like let that dictate my life, I think. But I've definitely done a lot of personal growth since leaving the show, purely because it's hard as a young female. You know, I had my pivotal growth years on the show, like 15 to 19, really.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like developing a lot and just like figuring out life so I definitely think that the mentality I have about it all now has been formed because of the few years that I've been able to grow after.
So if you were to try to put it in a sentence, who is Lily Van der Meer now?
Gosh, that's a good question. Um, I think I'm someone who I really respect um, the sacrifices that actors make to be in the industry. Um, and I am finally, for the first time in my life, not going to conform to what the public and to what the media wants me to be, because that's the other thing as well, you know. Articles and the Logies and all of these award shows that you would go to, and I was being dressed by people, and that wasn't me, that didn't suit me at all, but it's like you don't have a say. So I feel like if I have a voice now, and I didn't have a voice then. So I'm very grateful to Neighbours because it has given me the voice that I have. And I feel like um, each member of the crew and the cast kind of helped shape my personality and who I am and my morals. And I'm really grateful for that. So I think, yeah, I'm grateful for the strong voice that I have. And I feel like I'm not going to stand for people's bullshit anymore.
Which is awesome. And from when the first time I met you, which you would have been, I think, 16 by
Shots.
then you were already a very, very beautiful person, inside and out. And I think that's only ever been accentuated as you've grown as a person, I think. And obviously there's definitely a resilience now, which is so great to see, because that online thing, that how, and every actor gets it when they come onto a new show, especially one like Neighbours or Home and Away, because we're
Yeah.
walking into people's homes and we're there every weeknight, and they didn't invite us in. So there
Yeah.
is this thing where they go, no, I don't want you to be here because somebody else is going to leave if you're here.
Yeah.
So like it's sort of, it's understandable from their side of view and like point of view, but I don't think they should necessarily put the hate out there. But sometimes they don't realize that we see it and we feel what they say, because we're hyper emotional people generally.
Absolutely. That's the other thing. Like, I have no issue if you're attacking my character, because my character, when I first came onto the show, was supposed to not be liked. She was supposed to be the bratty teen. So if you're telling me, God, I can't stand this Xanthi character, look at her like strolling in thinking that she's all this and that, I'm like, great, I'm doing my job.
Mm.
But when it gets personal, when they start using your name and like, you know, just thinking things about your life that they think that they know that they don't, then it gets yeah, the lines get a bit blurred there.
So this respect you have for actors and what they give to roles, does that come from your love for Shia LaBeouf?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. um I've always been very, very interested. I have a deep passion for indie films and the dark psychological side of life. And I think that those stories are really interesting when there's no like makeup and lights and all these, it's just raw and real. And I think that um, beautiful cinematography really helps with that. And Shia LaBeouf, personally, I think is just an actor that is so real and emotionally available and giving to every role. There's scenes that he does just with his eyes. He doesn't need to say anything, but you can see it all in his eyes. And I'm like, if I could portray that emotion in half of the work that I do, I will die happy. Like he is just, I don't know, there's no facade with him, It's like you're looking at a mirror when you watch his work. And it's just vulnerable and it's real, and I really respect it. And I always walk away from his films just in awe of what he's created, and so simple as well. Like he doesn't do much, but it's in that simplicity. The same with Timothy Chalamet. He does this amazing thing, very, very subtle with their eyes, and you just suddenly feel everything that they're feeling. And that's just, I don't know, I think that's beautiful. I think that's a really great form of art. So that's kind of what I'm interested in. And that's yeah, my respect definitely, I feel like the respect for actors thing comes from just the grind that I've felt since post show. So I feel like that's like a different thing to get into.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference in certain, I guess, perspectives from comparing the actors who've been around for a while and coming onto a show like Neighbours compared to ones who are quite young and this is their first job, of what the industry actually is like and how it actually looks at you, and how small a cog you end up being once you're not on a show like Neighbours. And of course you can get lucky, but it's the rare case that gets lucky, and it is purely just a chance timing, at the end of the day. So it's a hard industry, as much as, and the hardest part about it is the bit that people see the most or at all is the success bit. It's when we get to work, and they don't see the 10 years or whatever it is around that of just pure grind.
No, and the frustrating part is that no one really talks about it. So I'm sitting now in this, and I'm like, no, these actors that have made it big from Australia and that have, done these incredible roles and stuff, they never seem to talk about in interviews there's always like a 2-3 year gap, and it just kind of everyone just kind of goes whoop and doesn't talk about it and just skips straight to like, I was on this show and then I was on this show and this show. But it's like, but the moments in between is what makes you the actor you are, because of the experiences that you're going through and the hardships that you're facing, struggling for money, but going to auditions, but trying to look your best, but not having money to do that, but trying to struggle it all. And then the mental health side of it, and not hearing anything back, and doing so many auditions, and then going into the room, everyone looks like you, everyone has a little bit more confidence, or their egos are just like floating in a different space to you. And it's just a lot to try and navigate. And yeah, it's just a really interesting time. Yeah.
We've kind of gone backward. Well, actually, we'll start. So what? Because we've started sort of towards the end, but instead of the start. But what does it?
Put me back on track.
No. Well, no. There is no track. That's the whole point of this. But okay. In light of this idea of your love for indie film and the raw worlds that they can create, what sort of role do you want in that world?
It makes me so excited thinking about it. I just films that tell a really confronting story, a story that necessarily people don't want to watch. For example, I watched Marriage Story the other week, and that was a film I didn't want to watch, but it was so captivating and beautiful that I couldn't fault it. The same with like Nocturnal Animals and like Killing of a Sacred Deer, like films like that, Requiem for a Dream. They're all films that are quite uncomfortable to sit in, but there's something about them that makes you want to keep going. And I love that kind of film. Even gore films, like there's a film called Raw, and it's
that the lion
disgusting,
one?
But no, the one about the woman that eats people, and she's like she's like a vet. She has it's like cannibalism, but it's the type of film where you just can't turn away from it. I really am intrigued by those kind of films, and also characters that you want to hate but you can't, because there's something that resonates inside yourself with them. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, and just to reference, I wasn't referencing like the Tiger King. There's a film called Raw, ROAR, where they used a whole bunch of real lions, and like it took ages, like a decade to film or whatever, and heaps of people were mauled through the shooting of it, and like it's like, I haven't actually watched the thing. I've just seen trailers for it and gone, I can't. That's just really, really intense. It's like this family or something in living in South Africa or whatever, and they live with lions, and then they just really, really intense.
Wow, I'll add that to my list.
ROAR, not RAW, which I think is what you were talking about. So let's talk about Little Lil. What was Little Lil like? What was growing up on the Gold Coast like for Little Lil?
I loved growing up on the Gold Coast. It was beautiful. How can you not love spending every day on the beach? And I mean, I surfing and loving the ocean, and I'm kind of more removed from that now because of traveling and things. But the Gold Coast is such a beautiful place to grow up, and it's a very small sort of area. Like, everyone, everyone in where I live like knows each other. You walk down the street and you see people that and it's nice. So it was sweet. I started doing speech and drama when I was 5. Purely because my mum wanted me to feel confident doing speeches in front of the class. So she started me doing that, and I kind of fell in love with poetry during those moments. And I think I didn't realize it then, but I fell in love with sort of deciphering a poem, and like it sort of the familiar, like the just, I don't know, it was just all all this stuff about poetry I loved, and then being able to perform it for people, like to a room, was then it just sort of lit something else inside of me.
If there is a
And
video
that,
of you of little Lil doing that, you have to put that out there because that would be amazing.
I think my auntie used to record a lot of things on like home video.
Mm.
So I think there could be one or two, perhaps out there somewhere. I'll scope through and try and find something. But yeah, I loved it, which also it was nice because then I understood like really famous poets and like these, amazing artists, and I knew their work like quite well.
Mm.
So it helped me going through school and English and that kind of stuff. It made me fall in love with literature and that side of things as well. Um, so yeah, I used to live to recite poetry. It was very fun. Um, so that was my life, was doing that and
Have you done much
surfing.
Shakespeare?
I've not. No, only through speech and drama.
Yeah, because it's sort of like if you have a love for poetry, I think then Shakespeare kind of goes hand in hand with that. So
Yeah.
you should have a play with it. Have you
I
seen? Have you seen? Speaking of Timothy Chalamet, have you seen? Is it Henry? What is? It's about Henry V, I think. But
King Henry
is it,
on Netflix,
yeah, um,
something like that.
there's a speech that he does when I think they're on the battlefield, which is essentially the Band of Brothers speech, which is a real famous
Mm.
speech from Henry V. But it's basically that, but in that film world, and how obviously the script's different and whatever. And that was a performance that I saw that I went, there's that, you just made the whole Band of Brothers speech click for me in what he did with something which, when he wasn't doing the actual script but just in his performance, I was like, it just made a whole lot of sense to me. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a
He
side note.
But that's what I mean by the whole like Shia LaBeouf, Timothy Chalamet thing. Like he just gets it. He understands the text and what he's saying and builds a whole world around it, which is phenomenal for Shakespeare, because that's something that every actor battles with once in their life, is like nailing Shakespeare or attempting to at least. So yeah, he's amazing. Colette saw him in a play
Oh really?
before he blew up, and she was like, he is going to be the next big thing. Like he was phenomenal. And that was when I first sort of um, was like onto his radar and his films and stuff, was from her saying that a couple years ago.
Yeah, wow. Were you good at school?
Yeah, I loved obviously drama. But yeah, I was good at school. Yeah, I really enjoyed math and English. Sorry.
Bless you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed math and English. Science wasn't really my thing. But I enjoyed school. I think the social side was never really for me, so therefore I delved into the um the, the schooling, like literal part of it, because that's just kind of what I would distract myself with, I think. So yeah.
And so then, because going from reading poetry, how did that go to doing professional auditions?
Um, well, I started doing short films, and I didn't quite, I was so green at the time, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So it was more just like my instinct was going in rather than doing anything else. Um, but it was important for me, I think, to just get onto a set to understand that, because there was only I'd been doing poetry for like what, five till I was till I got the show, literally before. So quite a vast number of
Yeah.
years. So there was not really more that I could delve into in that side. So I think it was time for me to sort of go into that other side. So I really felt like it helped, but it was almost like theater versus screen in that way.
Yeah.
It helped me love with words, but it didn't really help with making text
It's
natural.
funny you reference like you're just acting on instinct when you're green and that kind of thing, because it's sort of like when you're young, I think, and then people see something in you, it is pure instinct that is happening, and then you spend all of these years figuring out how to understand what you're doing and
Yeah.
achieve particular goals and objectives, with the end goal of it all coming back to you showing an instinct, but having it structured like in the background so that it all, comes out as a full performance. So I feel like you always have to have that instinct at the start, and then it's a matter of figuring out all the rest so that you can come back to relying on that instinct in the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. I sort of found that really beautiful. I never tried to focus too much on like articulating everything that I wanted to do. I mean, the background work of it was definitely like placing beats and things like that, but I really loved going into a scene and just seeing what happened with the other actor, but I also felt like it was important and I felt like I got more out of a scene when I did rehearse it one-on-one with the actor. That's something where when you find like the sparks and stuff, and when you're not afraid to play because you've done the background work, so you have the opportunity to play. I think that's when it gets exciting versus 14-year-old Lily being super green, being like, I don't know what any of this means, but like I kind of am keen to jump into this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you did in a very strong way, and you did very well, I've got to say, because people did definitely respond to you being on screen. So well done.
Thank you. But that was a build up of, I mean, like I won't deny it. It was my first job, and I was definitely learning the ropes. But through all of the cast and you guys, like I don't know, it felt like it was, Colette used to say I was like a little sponge, and so I used to just take on everything that people would say and then apply it in the best way that I could because I didn't want to hold anyone up. I always felt this huge pressure as being like the youngest to not take up anyone's time when I didn't need to, because I saw how other actors were and I saw how the crew responded to that when it wasn't like the greatest. And I never want to be that actor ever. So I was grateful also to come on at that time to absorb everything and see, what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and an on-screen and off-screen etiquette almost. Um, so in that way, I was lucky as well. So I feel like my acting improved through watching other people and also my etiquette for being on a set.
Which is, well, I mean, that's the best way to really take it. What were some of those lessons that you learned? I think people would be interested in that.
Takaya, do you really want to open up this can of worms?
Well, you can keep it general. You don't have to be pulling out specifics of people unless, you want to.
I would never. I would absolutely never. Um, what are some things that I learnt? Um, I learnt that the crew is there before you and the crew is there after you. And in winter, they usually don't see daylight. They all have families and they work their asses off for you to rock up and do your scene. And yes, there are times where as an actor you are on set for 13, 14 hours a day and you haven't slept since 4:30 that morning, and you probably won't sleep until 11 or 12 that night. But I can guarantee you that like you have, I don't know, there's pros and cons, there's privileges to both, and there's other hardships that we would face as actors. But I think the most important thing was to always, always, always respect the crew and to take the time to learn their names. I could not believe the amount of actors that had been on that show for years and still didn't know people's names. And I was like, that's really unfair. That's really unfair because they know your name and they know all of the other crew's names and all the other actors, and they're there for you, and it's a team effort. And I think that's something that I learned as well. Like, at the end of the day, it is a team effort. And if you respect the crew and if you're nice to the crew, they'll give you the time when you have a really vulnerable emotional scene and you need a moment to get into that space. They'll give it to you. If you're an asshole to them every day, except for the day when you need to be emotional and cry your eyes out, they probably won't be the nicest to you, because why would they? Because you've treated them like crap. So I think that's something that I learned very quickly. Also, the crew are so knowledgeable.
Mm.
They know. I learned so much from them, and they don't get enough credit. So I think that's something that I learned quite quickly. I also learned that that being on a big production, the people that you think are the one, like if you have a problem and you're going to like a producer or something, they really are the middleman, and a lot of the time it's not their fault and it's not really something that they have the power over or that they can change. So I think a lot of the time people are quick to like point fingers and certain blame for things, when it's not. Everyone's trying their hardest there, and I think that's what we sometimes. I don't know. I just never wanted to forget that people were there before you and later than you and working harder than you to make it all happen. So
Yeah, I think that's a really really lovely thing to say, and something that we all have to remember, which is difficult at times because we get tired and we get stressed and all that kind of stuff. And speaking of stress, like how did you handle that pressure that you felt? You know, at 15, 16, how how does one do that at that age, let alone ever?
yeah, it was more of a pressure of I wanted to always do my best and I wanted to always give 100%. And that proved to be difficult when I was trying to do school at the same time when I first came onto the show. So, and then Neighbours ended up coming to me and being like, look, you're working 15-hour days. Like, you're here a lot. Like, you need to either choose one or the other, basically. And so that was a challenge. So that was a bit of pressure. But then when that stopped and I only had Neighbours to focus on, I just was so focused on giving 100% to everyone all the time that I burnt myself out because um, being around like other actors sometimes and egos coming into play, it was something that I hadn't been around before and something that I didn't play into. So suddenly being around people that sometimes the not the fame but the public, being in the public eye and having articles written about you and stuff and going to events, it was something that I never was interested in. So being kind of forced into that world was it was a bit of pressure. And then also to handle, at the time, for the most part, there was still everyone that I went to school with was graduating and going to formal, and all I wanted then was to be a part of that. But then I was going to like the Logies and other weird things, and I was with like people twice my age and having to be really mature and sharp all the time. And I definitely maintained that. But then it's things where when I talk about I have my voice now and understanding the pressure of it all, it's more like, you know, when I got really sick that time and I had glandular fever
Mm.
and I shouldn't have been working for that week, but there was something inside of me that was like, no, I will not let anyone down because I know the crew come here early and I know the directors and I know the actors and I'm going to put everyone else down. And I didn't want to be that actor that just left and left everyone else to have to pick up their pieces. I never wanted to be that because I saw the effects of that. So I was like, I'll push through, I'll work through until it got to like fainting on set and the crew were like, we will not work unless she has a week off. So it was things like that, the pressure of that, of knowing what's right for myself and what's right for production in hindsight. I think that was a lot of pressure and that was quite stressful, but um it was my world, so I didn't have to worry about handling the stress by doing other things because there was no time to do other things. Like my world was Neighbours for 3.5 years. So now I feel like I'm living, like my life for me, not as feeling. I don't know if you ever feel like this, but do you ever feel like you almost have to? Maybe not, but me as a younger person, I always felt this pressure to prove that I wasn't my character in real life, to prove that I really didn't wear the things that she wore or talked the way that she talked or did the things that she did. And I don't know why it bothered me so much, but maybe it was because no one knew who I was before because it was the first thing that I'd done. So it feels, for a long time, it felt like my identity was seen through my character, which was a lot of pressure.
I think a lot of people have to deal with that in a lot of ways, because David's a bit of a like. There's definitely elements of me in him in that way. Like there are, I can be a little bit geeky at times, but then I'm also very sporty and that kind of stuff, which David definitely isn't. Which is like fun for me to play up as well, like his inability to do any physical task. But there is a sort of a thing for me that when I'm on set, and I don't mean to be, because I'm not like a method actor. I don't think that I need to be the person all the time and that kind of stuff. I do definitely try to, as much as I can, step into the character as I step on set, and let the words come out as the character and not have to be it on the in-between, but especially on a show like this, it's just impossible. You couldn't, I don't think Dustin Hoffman could do this kind of show. You couldn't just exist as that person, because you'd just go mental, or you would just be playing yourself, because it's the only way you can keep yourself safe. And there's definitely, in this kind of show, there's definitely elements of yourself that have to come out. I think the difficulty that I found starting the show was that I was coming to a place, and you would have had to deal with this as well, but I think it's actually slightly different as an older actor, not that I'm that old, but not in my teens at least. But starting the show, because with a show like Neighbours, everybody already has their life. They've got their friends, they've got their family, and whatever setup they've got their routine of working, and then having their weekends, whatever they do with it. And a lot of the time, they're separate things. So for me, I came on not knowing anyone, not really knowing anyone in Melbourne, and then feeling like, how do I? And on set, I'm a different person on set to what I am in my everyday life, and it's not on purpose. It's just there's a work mode or something that switches on, and how I approach things, right? And so I definitely struggled with trying to let people into that part of me, because it's not like it's something that I hold back, but it's something that is just comes out in other areas. Because that part of David or whatever switches on just a little bit when I'm on set. And when I started as well, because David was going through so many things, it was relatively heavy and quite a lot of stuff, like heady stuff, where he's internally going through a lot, but it's not a lot of stuff that I can say out loud, because he's hiding that he was gay, he was in the closet still, he's still trying to find his dad, and he's struggling with that, he's struggling with his identity, and so then there's a lot of like angst and stuff, and so that was heavy to sort of carry, and then I'm sure that then came out to everybody else. So I feel like people might have got that first impressions thing. I feel like people might have got a view of me, which then I've had to try and work at to break a little bit. So yeah, I do get what you mean.
I know what you mean with that as well. The whole like coming to Melbourne and not knowing anyone, because most of us are from different cities, and that's something that was really challenging as well, was like not having any friends outside of work and not knowing anyone, but also not having the time to do that. But yeah, I also know what you mean about your character too. Like when you do have those emotional things, sometimes it's really hard. What people don't realize is that, you know, if you have a really emotional scene, that you shoot scenes in like 20 minutes. So 20 minutes, half an hour. So you need to get yourself from being kind to the other people in the crew and the makeup artists and all of the other actors, and then you drop into set and you just instantly drop into that emotional state, and sometimes that is challenging as well. Yeah, so I know what you mean.
So to step into something a little bit lighter, what was your audition like? Was Xanthi the first Neighbours audition you'd done?
Yeah, so I was still so new to auditioning, because I only just got an agent like the year before, or not even a year before. So I used to do them in my living room, and we used to put a sheet over the TV, because we didn't have any money to go and do like self-tapes. So I used to put a sheet over the TV. My neighbor used to come and read for me, and my mum would film it, because she's a photographer, so she had like the camera. Yeah, and I remember doing it and not thinking much of it, because I'd just done a home and away audition a couple of weeks before that for a role that ended up going to quite a significantly older person. So I did this, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm so young. Like, that's what they told me last time. Like, you know, I'm 15. I'm not going to get this. So I just did it. And then I probably maybe a couple of weeks later, they were like, we'd like to see you for a callback. So they flew us down. It was the first time I'd been flown anywhere. Like, it was very, very exciting. My mum and I went, and we met the other actresses, and that's where I met Mav and Colette for the first time. And Colette was like so strict in the room, and I remember being so nervous. Like, you know how she is when like a new actor comes on, she's like, yeah, and she was like that with me, and I was so nervous. And then Mav was really nice. Colette was lovely as well, but I was just like very like overwhelmed. And then the director was in there, and it was incredible. And then I left, and I was like, I didn't look anything like the other actors, and I was so young compared to everyone else. I was like, I'm not getting that, but like, what a great experience. And then I was at school, and it was it was 2 days after my birthday, and I was at school, and yeah, I was like sitting eating lunch, and I got the call from my agent being like, "You have the role," and that's like the greatest call, isn't it? Hearing from your agent like you booked the job. There's just no greater feeling or phone call than that.
Are you a person? Because I'll get to how I react, but are you a person? Do you scream and run around, or what do you like when you hear that kind of news?
Um, I was like, okay, what do I do now? Like, they booked me a flight for the next day to come down and meet everyone. So I was at school, and it was, yeah, I had the afternoon before I could go home. And I just remember like going into English with my friend at the time, and walked in, and I was just like in a daze. I think I was in shock that
Mm.
I was leaving. I was also so excited to leave that freaking school. So it was like nice to just go in there and be. I said to the teacher, I was like, I because I had to send my audition in my English class, I remember, and she was getting angry at me, and I was like, I really need to send this audition. Can you please let me send this? And she was like, what's it for? And I was like, I can't tell you, but like it's a really big series. Like I really need to send it. And she was like, I get it, do it. So then when I got it, I went into the English class, and I was like, I got it. And then I just went and saw my drama teachers and said goodbye to them. And then that was the last time that I ever stepped foot in that school, and that I ever had to see those people again. And it was freaking
um, did you,
but
that's really nice that it
hey,
came like full circle with the English class, though. I like that. Was that a particularly
yeah,
nice teacher, or was it just a nice moment?
yeah. No, she was lovely. She was so lovely. It was a really nice, yeah, it was a really nice moment. All my teachers were really nice to me.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
was the
Um,
inspiration for acting before that? Was it just the poetry thing and you liked it, or was there someone helping you guide you in that way?
no, it was the poetry, and I just loved watching films. And yeah, I just fell in love with that. And so I just saved up money, and I went to my mum one day and was like, I've saved up this money. I want to do an acting course. I think this is what I want to do. And she was like, okay.
What was your first scene on
But tell me,
Neighbours? Or first,
what was my first?
what was the first thing you filmed? Can you remember?
Yeah, it was with Colette. It makes me really happy to think about these memories. Wow. It was with Colette, and we were in the Canning backyard, and she sprayed me with a hose. Um, and that was the first scene. And then the other scene I did was with Trav and Harley, or Trav and Tim. And I was like trying to sneak into the yard, and they were there, and they were like, "Who's this chick? What's happening?" And I was in really high heels, and it was just a whole thing. But they were my first scenes. Gosh, I was so young.
Yeah. And when you look back on your time at Neighbours, what stands out for you as, I hate using the word favorite because I don't. It's not really about that. It's just what moments stand out for you in either that you just go wow, like that are significant in maybe a way that makes you go, man, that's what I love about acting, or rather than like I loved doing this scene or something like that. Of like 'cause for me, I'll give you an example. This isn't a filming thing, but this was I was in a play. It was in Romeo and Juliet, and we were doing it in the Blue Mountains on an outdoor stage. It's grass stage with hedges that are the wings, and there's a big fountain brick wall in the back. It's in Lura. It's an incredible place, and I was standing in the wings. I was playing Paris in Romeo and Juliet, who's Juliet's like he's courting Juliet, and I was standing in the wings, and it's lightly raining, and I just think, is this because I'd been doing like a bit by this stage, and it's a slog and whatever, and I sort of said to myself in my head, is this what you really want to be doing? And I just took in the moment of this lightly misty rain, Romeo and Juliet, that I'm about to step on stage, and I just sort of smiled and walked on the stage. And for me, that was such an affirming moment, and it's so vivid in my mind, that stands out. And it's sort of like it's not a particular thing, you know what I mean? But it's just a moment in time that really that I cling to in a way as why I do what I do, or an affirmation of that. So is there something like that for you, or moments like that stand out that could be innocuous but just carry meaning for you?
That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful story, by the way. Side
Oh,
note.
thank you.
Um, I think, you know what? I think it's having having those really real, organic storylines that you know are really important, and moments where like you really have to put yourself on the line, and having the crew there that has your back in those moments. I'm like, this is why I do it. This is why I do it, because there's this real raw moment, and when the crew's silent when you finish filming, and like a couple of them are just like, shit, that was good. Like that was good. Like good job. When Adam pats you on the back,
Yeah.
wow, yes, I've done a good job. But it's moments like that that really get me. Also, something about night scenes, something about filming at night. Just, I love night shoots, and I don't know what it is. The cold air, maybe, like, and you guys just, it's silent. I like that. It's always really silent at night, so it's really just you and the other actor, and you're really focused on what you're saying, and you're really focused on the other actor as well. And I love that, creating those moments where you don't expect them to happen. When you're like, oh, I didn't know that scene was gonna take that turn, but it did. I love that. I think stuff like
I
that.
think the night scenes are a forced intimacy, whether you're outside or inside, because there's less lighting or whatever. It just, the whole thing goes, and like it's just you and the other person, and that's the focus. There's no like things flickering out in the background. And because of
Yeah.
being a show like Neighbours, there's always stuff going around in the background. So those night scenes really force that mood as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was that, had you done any other like play performances and at school and that kind of thing?
It's so funny you say that because my school never cast me in any of them. I'm definitely one of those stories of like, in primary school, never got cast, and then in high school, I can't sing, so they were always
Mm.
musicals, so I didn't get cast in any of those. But we did actually do a drama play in year 9 or year 8, and I was cast in that, and that was so great. And that's where I met, probably for the first time in my schooling life, like I actually felt like I had a couple of friends, and that was all because of drama, and it was really nice. And I'm still friends with them now. They were all in like the older grades. They've all graduated like 4, 5, 6 years ago, and it was really nice to wait longer than that because I technically would have graduated like five. Wow. Anyway, they were older and we were all good friends, and it was really nice. So like that kind of thing was fun. I do like stage. There's something about being not being able to stuff up, and if you do, you need to like work with it. And that's really exciting as
So
well.
this basically, outside of reading poems, the second performance you gave was Xanthi.
I did a couple of short
Okay,
films.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I did one for, oh, I was so young. I did one for one in Sydney and then one on the Gold Coast as well. And they were really fun. That was just nice to get me onto a
Mm.
set before I went to Neighbours. I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to picture, but even that, like that's, it's pretty impressive stepping onto a stage like Neighbours, uh, with, you had like a performance experience, but it's a real different kind. So it's good to have those short films, but it's like, that's still like, it's impressive what you're, and I think people at home should really understand what that means to be able to pull off what you were pulling off from the get go is super impressive. Like I'm genuinely saying that, like it really really is. Um, so
Thanks. Yeah, I'd collectively been on a set for like 4 days before I went on to Neighbours. And then to go into the fastest filming TV show in
yeah,
Australia.
second in the
But
world,
I love,
second in the world.
is
Yeah,
it?
behind Bold and the Beautiful apparently.
Wow.
We shoot 6 in 5 days, 6 episodes in 5 days, and they shoot 8 in 4. But they're very limited sets, so it makes it a little bit easier than what we have to do. Um,
Yeah, I visited the set when I was in LA.
Ash?
I went and saw Catherine.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I wasn't on the show when Ash was on the show. But I went and saw Catherine. She was lovely, and I went and saw it, and I was like, wow, this is just like Neighbours. It's very interesting.
Was Milligan on the show when you started?
Yeah, he was.
And then he came back
Yeah,
after you left, did he?
came back after
Yeah.
I left, which is like ironic, of course. Yeah, I loved working with Chris. He was great. He was someone that always made me feel really comfortable. And like I wasn't. making a mistake, because when I was, young, I didn't really know where to stand properly and how to do it and really quickly do things and not get in anyone's way. And I was very, I'm sorry for existing in this space. And he made me feel like, no, it's okay. You can create and you can do what you feel like you need to do for your character. So that was really nice. Chris kind of like got me out of my shell a little
I
bit.
feel like you had kind of like the Canning family was like the perfect dynamic to step into as a young actor, between the experience and the attitudes between Colette and who's a very, would you say, I don't know, would you say serious person when she's not
I
Sheila?
think
What word would you use?
I would say that Colette is very caring, but also takes her job seriously, which is really nice. So I think she's just
Mm.
professional. So I think when it comes to um, like being harsh with some actors, sometimes they need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got Damo, who's a hilarious guy, and sort of a halfway in between of what Milligan's like, who's like a clown
Yes.
most of the time,
Yeah.
but in the best way possible, and also a very hard worker. So you had these three people who really could guide you in a really, really great way. So I think that was really fortunate for you in that way, because they're incredible at that, doing their job, but also approaching it from different directions. So exposing you to the idea that you didn't have to be one set thing too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that I definitely um, am a mixture of the three of them, especially when I was like working and breathing in that set. But I'm very, very grateful that I was cast into that family. And sort of I felt like they were my parents when I was living there, which was really nice. And I kind of needed that guidance so that I knew. I mean, we know it, like as actors, there's like two paths that you can take, and I didn't want to take a certain path, and so it was nice for them to like have me sort of like surrounded by professionalism and by the good sides of like what you should be doing and stuff like that. So I was very, very lucky to have them
Yeah.
as my family. Yeah.
Would you ever return, or are you happy to have closed that chapter, or it's just a maybe undecided thing?
No, I don't know. I don't want to shut any doors, but I also just the reason that I left the show was because I felt like I needed to I've always wanted to go to America. I've always wanted to give America a go and do those kinds of films, and like the experience was phenomenal, and I will never ever ever take that for granted. But as I said earlier, like the things that I want to do, I need to leave at some point to be able to push my way into that door of those kinds of films, and I can't do that if I keep going back and forth onto the show. And I know a lot of people do that, and that's great, and I respect that, but I just think that I can't let selfish reasons of why I would go back to the show, I can't like let them overtake my creative passion. So I think at this point it's it's not something that I'm focused on, but I would always like have, I would always be open to that if they needed me for something, or I don't know. Yeah, it's just not something that I'm looking at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay. We have hit time, so I'll go through and we'll have a look at the chat. Someone asked. I think it's kind of Claire Nacy. Have you still got the mug we sent you, or did you leave it on set? Are you and Mav cartoon
I
pick? Is she wrote? I don't know what that means.
I do, and I use it literally every day. It's in my washing machine. In my washing machine,
You're
it's in my
watching.
dish. Mav and I still have them, and we use them every day. It's really sweet. Yeah, I still have it. Still have the bookmark as well.
Um, and I think if anyone follows you on social media, they know that you still hang out with Mav a reasonable amount.
Yeah, yeah. Well, our friendship kind of like blossomed sort of post Neighbours. I think we were like friends in during the show, but we were never like Mav is my soulmate. Like we're on a different level now.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's interesting how her Instagram or her social medias have sort of evolved as well since leaving Neighbours. And
Ours have, because we both experienced that moment of like, who am I? What is my identity, and who am I like inside? So I think we both kind of went on this like mental spiritual journey at the same time together, and that kind of formed our the bond that we have. Yeah.
Favorite Shire film?
Charlie Countryman or Fury
Oh.
or The Company You Keep or Honey Boy or American Honey. One of those. One of those.
um, so basically any of his later films. Um,
Pretty much. Yeah. Anything post Transformers.
if you weren't acting, what else is in the Lily boat?
Nothing.
Would you make stuff? Would you
No.
direct or produce or write or anything like that?
You know what? I do have a passion for directing, but purely because it stemmed from the acting and it stemmed from my love for film and cinematography. So I would like to delve into that one day, but I definitely like to do it sort of like what Margot did, like the post acting, start producing, start directing kind of thing. But there's nothing. Oh, actually, there is one thing maybe that I
Oh
would like
yeah.
to do, and that would sort of like investigating crimes like psychology and finding like men that keep kids in their basement and stuff, like getting those guys and putting them in prison. I would really be into that, like private investigating.
Interesting. That would be
Mhm.
that's a dark path to have to walk too, but it would be very rewarding. Hopefully.
Absolutely. I'll do it through a role.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or tell those people stories. Is a good way to
Yeah.
go. This one's from Rari. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. McCallion. What did you think when the producers told you Xanthi would be playing the trumpet? Can you actually play it?
It's a euphonium, and I had never heard of euphonium in my life before. And no, I cannot play it. And I remember, I don't know if you were ever in a scene with me, Tak, when I had to play it, but I was so shocking, so bad at it that they dubbed it. Like, of course, like they did post. But I would do it, and the crew could not stop laughing. It would take us so long to film euphonium scenes because I was so bad at it, and it was just really embarrassing. Yeah, they just kind of threw that in. They also threw my character speaking Japanese in as well, and I was like, okay, I won't do that.
And that's like across the board. Producers just think that actors just do everything. On the Family Law, because I had my like bio thing, I could play basic guitar, which is true. Like if you tell me the chords and then show me the chords, I can strum it, right? Which I think is basic guitar. But then my character on the Family Law suddenly was a really good guitar player and who also sang and played guitar, which is a different skill, right? Because I can sing
Yeah.
and I can play a very basic guitar, but doing them both at the same time is very difficult. So we've gone, okay, we got this school performance and you're going to be on stage and you're going to be in front of like 200 extras and you got to play this song and sing at the same time with my TV sister on that show, played by Kimi Tsukukoshi really well, who's doing amazing things now, and who should be on this at some point. She had to play the harp, and she was classically trained on the piano, and so there was some kind of transition because she could sing and play piano. She's a musical theatre person as well, so she was okay. But I was like, oh my god! So we had 2 weeks to learn this song. Learned the song, and then on the Friday, I was filming play school stuff at the time. I was on set shooting Humpty's Big Adventure, and I get a call from the producer of Family Law. And mind you, we're filming this on the Monday, and this is the Friday afternoon. Get a call from the producer going, yeah, so we lost the rights to the song, so we're going to have to do a different song. So we're going to do this one. You're going to have a Skype call with the production secretary, I think she was, who could also play the guitar, who's going to run you through it tomorrow. And my fingers were already so sore because I was practicing it so much because I was like, I want to be able to play the song and sing and it be good. So then we had 2 days to learn a whole new song. And we get on set on the day, and me and Kimmy had run it together, and we've talked to the director and said, how much do you need? Because they didn't really tell us how much of the song we need, so we had to learn the whole thing. And then the director said, oh, we should probably need just like the hook into the chorus at the end, and that's sort of it. And me and Kimmy are walking up the stairs onto the stage, and I turn to her and go, why don't we just do the little end of the hook bit or whatever it's called and playing, and then we just go a cappella from for the whole last bit, so it sounds like, oh, we've planned this amazing ending to it. And so then we play the last bit, and then I think I went a cappella, and then she just did some basic things, and so we just relied on our voices for that end bit, and then that was what ended up on screen. And because we were just like, and it actually worked. It actually looked like it was the end of this big performance, like we'd been playing and blah blah blah. Because I was just like, man, you could just go so bad, and we had to look really good. We had to be the winners of the competition, so.
Oh no, that's the worst.
It's the worst, but it's just a thing where producers go, "Oh no, you're an actor, so you just do everything, right?" And you just have to go,
Yeah.
"Well, okay,
Okay,
Sure.
I'll teach myself in 5 hours.
yeah, you mental." Sorry, that was a bit of a sidetrack.
No, good hearing it.
I'm coming towards the end now of other things. A lot of people asking whether you'd come back and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they love that question on my social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Someone met you at The Bodyguard. What did you think of The Bodyguard, the musical? Ness Hill asks.
Oh, I loved it. That was good. That was a good one. Yeah, that was really good.
Carly Jackins would love to see you as a badass cop.
Thank you. I would love to play a badass cop that doesn't have to get their body out to play a badass cop. I would like them to have a good personality.
Yes.
And be a bad bitch.
Kate, I think we've answered whether you're still friends with anyone on set. We're friends. We don't get to catch up enough.
We're friends. No, well, because I'm not in Melbourne, it's really hard to catch up with anyone from set. But we kind of just stay in touch over social media, like as much as possible. But I'd say Mav and Colette are like tight. We're tight.
Claire, David could have taught Xanthi some Japanese. David could have, Takaya couldn't, because Takaya doesn't speak much Japanese. Tim can speak Japanese. He's studied over there. But everyone should be watching Neighbours, who's in Australia right now anyway, because it's already 10 minutes in. But let's wrap it up there.
Get off.
Anything else you want to add?
No, just I just hope that everyone is staying safe and applying to the social distancing rules, but also like keeping on top of their mental health and staying happy.
All right.
And that's all that's going on.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Lily Van der Meer. It's been a pleasure as always.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. And thank you everyone at home for joining me for takTalks number 12. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you know when the next one's on, when it goes live, and any other ones that you might miss, you can catch up on. I'm making this for you guys. I'm not really getting anything out of it except getting to chat with brilliant people like Lily. And now I get to announce another brilliant person I get to chat to. Here's another Neighbours actor, and I'm sure you all love him just as much as you love Lil. And, you know, half as much as you love me, I guess. But it is Benny Turland. Benny Turland's going to be coming on tomorrow. We're going to be chatting everything from his dancing on Young Talent Time, as well as talking about Mia, who's just joined me. Look at her. Hello. So definitely subscribe so you know that one's coming up, and have the little bell thing. I don't know much about YouTube. I'm making all of this up as I go. But thank you for joining me today. Mia, thanks you for joining her today as well. She's struggling to stand up on the table. You going to say anything? No. All right, thanks, guys. I hope you have a great night. I hope you stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.